Hello and welcome to another commentated game of the Remote Access League Season 4. In this game, we have Ben playing Persian, and the armies are Varuna versus Vanilla Haqqislam. The scenario is Frontline. So to begin the game, Ben has won the role with a Whip 13 Lieutenant, which in Varuna means, typically speaking, a Zulu Cobra, and Persian has lost with a Whip 14 Lieutenant, which means not Saladin. Ben chose deployment on the left side, in response to which Persian elected to go second, which means that Ben has both deployment and first turn advantage, but this being frontline, Persian will have the chance to move models to score at the end of the game. There's actually a really interesting choice that Persian made here, and we'll probably get more into it when we start to sort of assess and analyze how the players are going and what's going on with their turns. Ben is just finalizing the deployment of a HVT here, but the game is basically underway. So Persian, who deployed first but is going second, we'll switch to his perspective. He's got from left to right an authorized bounty hunter with Acrolite Cannon and SMG, just a cheap regular order. Zolekia Narazova, the best biker in Hark, although she's notably pricey. Agazi Matalia with boarding shotgun and Emirat, prone behind this flower bed. His HVT is deployed up here. A Mimetism 0 camouflage marker, which, given the absence of camouflage markers around it, means it's either a Libertos that isn't a mine layer or more likely a Dalami. Another Libertos or Dalami here, and then a third one over here that must be a Dalami because it's beyond, actually both of these are beyond the forward deployment zone. So these two, left and right, must be Dalami, probably with Panzerfaust and light shotguns, and then the closer one could be a Libertos or could be a Dalami. Persian has also deployed two camouflage markers with mimetism -3 and an impersonation marker in good impersonation state all the way up on this building. Now, these pieces are positioned to be comfortably inside the central zone, and this Fidea also, I believe, is just inside the central zone, although she could easily move, either by coming down this ladder and moving into the deployment zone, or just hanging out on this rooftop. In Persian's deployment zone, we have a standing Fanus Flash Pulse remote, a standing Sekban HRL NCO, and then a prone Mukhtar Red Fury, a prone Mukhtar Hacker, a prone Asawira Spitfire, which, based on what we've seen so far, must be Persian's lieutenant, and then Persian's reserve drop was Armand Lemuet with MSV1. Just doing a quick check of his army list to make sure we haven't missed anything. No, that's the lot. So switching perspectives here to Ben. Ben spent a command token to hold back two reserves, and he's deployed a standing Fugazi drone bot, a prone camouflage marker with mimetism, which marks it most likely as a Zulu Cobra, a Bulleteer Spitfire, one of his reserves, a camouflage marker -3, also likely a Zulu Cobra, camouflage marker with no mimetism, likely a Hilot, a prone Fugazi drone bot, and then another reserve drop over here, a Peacemaker with heavy shotgun and an Oxbot, and then a big core link. There are 6 models here, so one model won't be in the link. I believe it's this generic Fusilier, or possibly this Fusilier, probably not the Fusilier Paramedic. But we've got Kamau Multi-Sniper, Kamau HMG, Fusilier Hacker, Fusilier Paramedic, Fusilier Combi, and then another Fusilier Hacker back here. Actually, probably the Fusilier Hacker on the left is the one that's not linked, I imagine. And Ben is just beginning his first turn. So something that's interesting sort of immediately off the bat is that we've got fairly conservative deployment positions, but Armand here is deployed very well. He's very thoroughly defended against the bulk of Ben's firepower. Ben's firebase here in this building on the right of his deployment zone is fearsome. Kamau snipers, paramedic, Kamau HMG. All of this is stuff that, in ideal, even under ideal circumstances, maybe only the Mukhtar will really have a good gunfight against, and then it's going to be sort of optimal bun. You might be able to have the Mukhtar come into this Kamau HMG, but it doesn't even want to fight the Kamau sniper unless it's got good range bands. But there is this high ground. There is this high ground in the middle of the table that's keeping this portion of Persian's deployment zone safe, which actually means that even the Fanus that deployed before anything else is safe from the core firebase. So we've got Armand Lemuet as the reserve drop here, and he's covering these entrances into the deployment zone or into Persian's half of the table, which I think is really good positioning. Now he's going to be vulnerable if there's like a gun up here, but of course there are all of this infiltration presence. So I think this is an excellent reserve deployment. And Ben having two reserves is sort of not really able to capitalize. Arman's blocking the pass into his DZ really well, and then of course otherwise you've got all of these camouflage markers which probably have shotguns. So the first engagement of the game has already taken place. We have this Kamau core link. Limited order pool for Ben, which among other things goes to show that there are some models off the table. But the Kamau HMG has engaged and destroyed a Dalami. Persian has chosen to strip orders from the combat group with the two remotes, which basically means that they are not going to have balls out attack runs. So while there's definitely some risk to Persian's deployment zone assets, I think he's probably going to be able to hold the first turn attack. And Hack usually can, right? The presence of Dalamis, if nothing else, imposes a certain amount of order taxation on your opponent. They have to be discovered, they have to be shot, because they have both shotguns and Panzerfausts. And at these range bands, they're obviously positioned to place shotguns into models that might, say, come through this gap here, or come through either of these alleyways. You can sometimes really just bull past and make a real go, but force them to reveal themselves. But Ben's attack remote force doesn't really want to do that. And Ben also has some light skirmishers in this list that don't really want to do that either. So I think this is a really solid defense. The only thing that is kind of missing is we can see on this flank we have this Mukhtar hacker projecting a hacking area into all of the space that this Dalami threatens. This is a wonderful layered defense. It's very, very well done. And I'll zoom in on it so you can see. This Dalami, assuming it's a Dalami, but it sort of has to be, has a shotgun line out into both of these sort of alleyway entrances. And as a model closes to engage the Dalami, and in particular as a model closes to try and deny the Dalami cover, it's moving into this hacker zone of control. He hasn't duplicated that effect on this side of the table, and he possibly could have if there were, say, a Hawa hacker under one of these camouflage markers. He could feasibly have done the same thing and projected a similar threat, say, coming off of this rooftop or coming off of this out of this nook here. Now he's chosen not to do so, and I can see the logic in particular in layering the defense here. Two models under camouflage, and these can't be mines, right? They're both prone. These two models stacked here kind of means that they are in a position to defend themselves. It's unlikely that a Varuna skirmisher can engage both of them without dying. So I think this is as well positioned a defense as you can take, and I think the decision that Persian has made to go second, it's very, very fraught even in frontline. You have to be really, really sure that you know what you're doing and you're doing it well, because obviously your opponent can capitalize and knock you out of the game early if they can really. So for example, I would never against Haqqislam, I would almost never go second, deploy first, because it means the Hassas Infidels are coming for you. But Varuna is an extremely defensive faction. Varuna, it's different, a little bit different in N4 to N3. Some pieces are a little weaker, some pieces are a little stronger. The Varuna tag game, obviously a cutter is cheaper and better, and etc. Whereas Helots lost their mimetism in the camo state. If you remember N3, Helots had just limited camouflage, which means they were -3 to discover. Now they're zeros to discover, which makes them much easier to sort of reliably remove. But they're still Helots, they're still amazing. Ablative ARO pieces, they're still very threatening. And Varunas, they still have jammers, they've still got Crocman hackers, they've still got peacemakers. So Varuna's defense is still excellent, and their offense is still like just a little fragile unless there's a cutter. And a piece of information that Persian had was that there was a Whip 13 lieutenant on the Varuna side of the table, which immediately rules out a cutter lieutenant because the cutter would be Whip 12. In fact, the only Whip 13 lieutenants in Varuna are a combi rifle Kamau and a Zulu Cobra. So on the back of this, I think sort of like making the decision that if there was going to be a cutter, he could potentially defend it. Cutter's short range attacks at least are very bad. On the grounds that he could presumably ablate the worst of a cutter attack, he's chosen to go to otherwise that Varuna is sort of a bit maladapted to attacking. He's chosen to go second. So we'll see how this plays out. We casted the last game that we commentated on this table was a White Company versus Ariadna game, and Ariadne made the same decision. And I think that was riskier. The game between Raymond and Trent, um, Raymond's decision to go second with an Ariadne list. Now, he had similar tools, less effective. A Delamy is much cheaper than a Metro with Panzerfaust, but a similar sort of play. But White Company is kind of better at attacking, and Ariadne is kind of worse at defending, just a little, than Haqqislam. So it paid off well, actually, for Raymond. But in this particular instance, I think the risk that Persian has chosen to take is more considered. This is probably one of the few circumstances where I would say, yeah, I think this is potentially, actually, the right play, rather than being a risky play that could pay off. So the Varuna advance is beginning. We've got some gunfights, and really the discussion that's happening between players now is about lines of fire, um, because there's a yeah. So we've got engagements with yeah. So another Delamy has revealed itself, um, to take a shot at the Kamau, and everyone whiffs because the Kamau is at very long range. So it needs tens because it's plus for range, plus for link team, minus for range, minus for cover. So whiffs across the board, um, and the game continues. So what is sort of having to happen here, and this is kind of a thing that Haqqislam forces on people, is that Ben is having to use his core link team to deal with the Dalamis. This Dalami has just dropped a Panzerfaust, its last Panzerfaust, into a Kamel. And actually, astoundingly, the Delamy is surviving. Although the reason the Delamy is surviving this face-to-face roll is that it's extreme long range. But basically, Ben is having to spend his first turn cleaning off these Delamy. And you just kind of have to do that, right? Sometimes you have models that can push through and like demand the Delamy respond. So for example, if Ben could move his Peacemaker up without being attacked by Armament, then he could just run forward and like force the Delamy to reveal. Because if they didn't, then maybe flamethrowers get into Muqtas. But in this case, he's choosing to engage, and he's like basically Persian is revealing. Persian is giving him the shots. Because if those Delamy die, it means that other things aren't dying. And we can already see Ben up here. He's got he's got a very limited order pool left. This is also, to an extent, testament to the light maladaption of Varuna on the offense. Ben's got models off the board. I know what they are, but for the sake of the game, they're not going to be a cutter. There's really just not enough stuff left. But there are two empty combat group slots in his list, which could be Crocmen or could be Echo Bravos, both of which the Delamy were positioned to defend against, and both of which will have to spend kind of their orders to appear. Crocman obviously can appear and attack, but a Crocman doesn't want to attack a Delamy, he'll just get shotgunned unless he catches it at good range. I don't know where Ben has deployed these models, if they're Crocmen. I would love to see... I don't know if it's good, but I feel like Crocmen on this rooftop to fight these camouflage markers would be incredible, but also probably egregiously risky. So we will see. So Yoxbot's moved forward here and has disconnected itself, but doing so has it dodged somehow? Not sure what it dodged. Oh, it made this Delamy reveal itself. So this Oxbot is disconnected, but it will reconnect at the end of an order in which the Peacemaker moves into zone of control. So that's a bit of a pain. The Oxbot has forced the Delamy to reveal itself. It took a shotgun, but the distance is very, very slightly misjudged, and it's produced a situation in which the Oxbot is now out of coherency, which kind of sucks. But here we go. So the first Crocman is revealing itself. A camouflage marker -6 has shown up, and it is prone, and it's able to stand. Ah, okay. So it's staying prone, and it is doing a hack against the Delamy. Okay, and he's done data scan. We got a 3 versus an 11. So this sort of suggests that Ben, actually, I think Ben's recognized this, right? He's got very, very few orders left. So this Crocman has popped out. So the first one has revealed itself to be hanging out over here. It's a Crocman hacker. And that's kind of like, that's probably going to be the end of what Ben can accomplish this turn. So, two dead Delami. No, one dead Delami and two revealed Delamis. That's really like not what you would consider to be an ideal first turn, but I think it's a bit. It's firstly testament to Huck's defensive strength. Secondly, testament to Persian's decision to just go second against Varuna, and particularly this was a Varuna list that was like the defenses on this Varuna list. We've got a Crocman hacker. We've got this amazing core link with a surplus model. We've got a Peacemaker with actually three hackers are behind this Peacemaker. There's two Fusiliers and this Crocman. Um, and then multiple Zulu Cobras and and a Helot in this list. It's just like it's very, very nice defense. So Persian will probably struggle to push very hard, although I mean the Fade is quite far, not out of position. The Fade is positioned to be points in the zone at the end of the game. I think Persian's attacks will probably be chiefly with irregular troops, trying to just come around the Kamau sniper and not have to fight it. But that's kind of fine, right? If Persian just makes small value trades, then he's winning because he's going last. So you have a very interesting. We might see a passive game. We also might not. Both of these players I know are very capable of launching strong attacks in terms of their player skill, not necessarily their armies. And there are pieces in Persian's list that could really deliver a hammer blow if they're allowed to. The Mukhtars, for example, are amazing gunfighters. And Mukhtar is probably the only piece that might be able to actually really take a fight against this core link. And it's pretty able to do it, actually. And it's almost got, I think it can get up forward as well. So we will see. There are some opportunities that are sort of available here. To Persian to make a more aggressive series of plays than maybe like I would in his shoes, just being passive, sort of doing what I would call the safe play. So let's see how he plays out his turn. So sort of the first decision Persian's making here is that this Delami is not going to Impetuous because it would have to move up and over the planter bed. That would be the most efficient path towards the deployment zone, which would, yeah, bring it into line of fire of the Kamau. Nice, nice red to blue line there. Zuleki, on the other hand, looks like she will Impetuous because she's not going to move through the Kamau's line of fire. She's shorter than this dumpster, so she'll be squeezing through here because she can't vault either of these pieces, and then cranking it around the corner. And it looks like she'll be okay. Yeah, the Kamau's not going to engage her. Okay, and so Zuleki is just going to take some long-range breaker pistol shots against the disconnected Oxbot. Not a bad use of them. The Oxbot can reconnect if this Peacemaker gets into range of it, so that's kind of reasonable. And two hits from Zulekia. Oxbot's BTS 3. Ben's using custom dice, and I can't see what they roll, but yep, so unconscious. And there's no engineer in Ben's list. We'll just do a quick check there. Yeah, I certainly don't see one. So the remotes are kind of expendable. That the poor Oxbot's not coming back. And just while Persian's thinking, another thing that's probably worth mentioning is that this is also one of the circumstances where a tabletop simulator game is a little different to a in-person game. And this is this is in the context of the decision to go second, deploy first. Because these maps are publicly available and everyone is kind of playing the same thing. Everyone will be playing Frontline on this map. Everyone will be playing, etc., etc. Which means that if you particularly want to, you can spend some time planning out a deployment. You can spend, if you need to, you could spend hours poring over the map, figuring out what it is that you want to be able to do, and you can spend the mental energy in advance of the game figuring out how you might put together a defensive setup that has to hold against someone going first off of a deployment advantage. You could even do that on both sides. And I know that Persian is currently not able to leave his house because of situation in and around the world, and so he kind of has time to do that. And what that means is that he actually has a degree of like some adaptation is always going to be needed depending on what it is you're playing against. Some things like some Delamy placements will be really good or really bad depending on like who is your opponent, what is their faction. But in this instance, Persian was able to like pre-plan out his defense, which I think he deployed in like about 5 minutes, which suggests that he was pretty confident in what he'd come up with. And that's not a confidence you could necessarily bring into an in-person ITS event. In fact, it's really not because if you in an ITS event, you're coming to a table like probably pretty raw. Like occasionally there'll be situations where like you might have played on a table early in the day, or you might have been able to do a wander around. You know, you get to the event early, you scope out the tables, you see what's going on. But fundamentally, your advanced intelligence in a um, regular in-person ITS event is going to be pretty limited unless you're playing on like a table that you bought and set up. But even then, you won't have like played against it. You won't have played on it. You'll have just sort of seen it. So the risk that you're assuming if it's an in-person event is going to be higher because you like just categorically Persians had potentially hours to pour over this table and come up with a defense that could hold a second turn attack. You don't have that in an in-person event. Deployment is kind of, you'll have heard this before, deployment is sort of the first turn of the game. Absolutely it is. Um, you can, if you need to, take time on deployment, but you've only got 2 hours to play an Infinity game, and that's in an ITS event, typically speaking, and only an hour of that is yours. Um, to like sort of comfortably spend, which means that if you can't massively extend out your deployment zone time to allow for the considerable amount of additional mental processing that deployment might take when you're under the extra threat of go second, deploy first. So I'd be interested actually, is it possible that TTS is a venue, particularly TTS style formats where you can see the tables potentially weeks in advance of the event? Is that a format where being able to play second off of a deployment disadvantage if the scenario is right, and you're willing to put the time in, is something that players can do more than they could in an in-person event? And how does that affect the balance of the game? I have no idea. Interested to hear comments of anyone who might have some thoughts on this. And anyway, in any case, while this conversation is going on, a Dalami is climbing this building, presumably to fight a Crocman. So this Dalami is just moving up. Now, it can get to this Crocman without fighting the Kamau, and the reason why it can do that is that you can climb prone now. Now, I think it would take just about all of the Dalami's prone movement to crest this ledge and come down, and I'm actually not even sure how the rules handle that, because obviously your base is not fully supported. So you're vaulting, but this is too short to vault. But in any case, at minimum, the Dalami can orient itself upwards and then come back down again to see just the Crocman. It might not be able to do that in a way that gives it a discover shoot order, but it's also like locking the Crocman in. Um, Lovely 3D model here, by the way, from the 3D workshop. So Zaleki is just activating now using Hero Regular to drop some smoke. Smoke goes down, protecting it from the Hillock. So we've got some more smoke down, basically covering these lines as Alicia moves forward. And actually the reason that what sort of happened here is that this smoke grenade template's been very, very slightly off, and there's sort of a gap. And we had to zoom all the way in to see it, but there definitely is a gap there and a gap there. So Perzan nailed the smoke grenade in the middle of the alleyway, but in doing so, it's basically more than a template wide. And that's particularly a problem because there's a helot here and a suppressive fire bullet here. Now, for my money, this might be more than 24 inches. And in any case, Selekier is dogged, but he's choosing not to, like, not to take the risk. So we've got, this could have been done in 2 smoke grenade throws if Posen had known in advance, basically, that 1 would not be enough. It could potentially even have been in 1, because we can see that the alleyway narrows. But it is what it is. Placed 1, you pick a target point, and it's not until you've done that that you sort of realize, oh shit, okay, the smoke is not where I need the smoke to be. And I think it was pretty, like, my eyeball would have said, yeah, 1 smoke grenade will block that. And in fact, it would have if it had been like an inch and a half, 2 inches further forward. So, you know, even the best players, and Persian is a very, very good player, make these mistakes. And so here we go. Zalekir is moving forward. We have, so again, these cheap, irregular hack troopers making a run on the enemy. Now, presumably Zaleki is going to have this shit targeted out of her because there is a whole team of hackers back here, even if this one doesn't activate, but we will see. So we got looks like we got a flamethrower versus shotgun arrow. So good outcome there. Zulekia does go dogged, but she also kills the Peacemaker, and we'll see if Ben has remembered that he has hacking arrows. Yeah, it looks like no. Okay, so Selechia is not going to be subject to a targeted arrow. We're going to keep an eye on that. It's easy to sort of like kind of forget that your hackers can spotlight things, particularly when it's such a like, it's an impetuous, dogged, gonna die next order, blah blah blah. But it could potentially really matter because there might be other face-to-face rolls against Selechia that become more or less safe depending on whether or not she's in the targeted state. So I suspect she's just going to make a fucking yeet roll around the corner here. But he does have the option. She's got a fair few orders, I think. She's got like 4 left. She could throw a smoke grenade, run around, get within 8 inches of the sniper, and if this, so be safe from everyone. And if the sniper shoots her, flamethrower the sniper. But I don't think that's what she's going to do. If I was going to, I would suspect she's just going to be like, templates for everyone. Yeah, okay, so here she comes. Yeah, here she comes. She's a man-eater. She'll eat you up. All right. So that's about as far forward as she can get. But this is a very aggressive sort of positioning. So we've got an interesting decision here to break the link a little. And Ben's eyeballing that this Kamau is in flamethrower range, and he is bang on. Yeah. So now they're probably I'm not convinced the 3-dimensionality of the template lets you hit prone model, standing model. But if the players are happy with it, the players are happy with it. So we've got a dodge on the sniper to try and preserve it. Breaks out of the link, but it'll rejoin if this HMG who is shooting survives. So 2 hits with the pistol, unaffected by whether or not Zulekia is targeted. And the combi rifle. 2 hits on 11. So the fact that Ben forgot his targeted AROs before does not matter. And Zulekia basically gets obliterated in a hail of fire, but it means she's landed flamethrower hits on a Fusilier combi, a Kamau HMG. So the Kamau is at least unconscious and is dead. So it's a dead HMG, and that's immediately. This is an excellent result for Zulekia. Does she kill the combi as well? No, it lives. But again, and there needs to be a dodge on this Kamau, who's looking, I think, for an 11. And passes. So even with the fact that the link has survived with 5 members and sort of still can be formed up around this Kamau, Ben will need to spend a command token to reform it because it obviously broke when the HMG leading the link died. This is kind of like a good outcome for both players. Ben has kept the majority of his stuff intact. Would have been better if the Kamau had survived rather than the Fusilier, but they're both armor 1 troops. You can't be upset if one of them survives at all. But on the other hand, from Persian's perspective, Zulekia has killed like 40 something points of models, a 20-point Oxbot, and a 28 point, yeah, so 48 points of models killed by Zulekia. Now she spent orders to do it, but that's a great outcome. And if Haqqislam can keep making that kind of value trade, then all that's left for Haqqislam to do is at the end of the game run forward into deployment zones. So I mean, this is an excellent play. We'll see what else Persian's got in the tank. It looks like the majority of his Group 1 orders have been spent on Zulekia, so we'll see if much more can be done. I'm not sure if this Delami has orders. Maybe it can make an attack, but yeah, very well done there. Ben will go into his second turn with both order pool and offensive options intact, but he's going to have to make use of them. He'll have to like, demount this command multi-sniper, move it up to this corner, take some fights, etc., be more aggressive. And he didn't have the orders to do that in the first turn. And in fact, it's actually a pain in the ass to get out of this building in retrospect. Now, we can sort of maybe critique Ben's deployment here a little bit, although I'm not sure that it's right to do so. But very specifically, we could sort of see this fire team with the Kamau, the 2 Kamau, etc., was positioned extremely defensively, which has served it well. It's meant that it's taken an entire like set of orders for Zuleika to come forward and engage, etc. It's very safe. It's going to be hard for Haqqislam to really attack, but Ben was going first and could have positioned these much more aggressively. He could have positioned, say, the sniper or a HMG almost up at this corner just to move up and take gunfights on this rooftop, on rooftops over here, up on this rooftop here. All of these were like potentially options. Now you've got to bear in mind there's this camouflage presence, you've got to be careful of that, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't, just for example, he did not even set up to take a Kamau shot at this standing Fanus, which could have been engaged from this building corner here, or this elevated position here, or I think that's about all. And to be fair, okay, that's actually all. This Fanus is actually shockingly well defended from the ground level. So like up here, like vaulting onto this car, you could engage it from like this position here. There's kind of an argument that and like I'm saying this with the benefit of hindsight, I'm sure Ben is like, well, what imperfect information, etc., etc. But I feel like having had the link team further forward, including the sniper, like if the sniper had deployed here, you are in a position where Armand Lemuet can stand up and just take a gunfight, and it's 2 dice 13s and 2 dice 16s. But Armand has more wounds. It's a bit naff, but whatever. Or the Mukhtar could like potentially come around. But I think if the sniper was here, you have to deal with this Delami, or it will run forward and suicide into you. But the sniper would have. You'd also probably Zalekia would be able to suicide into you as well, I think, because she could come to here and then 8 inches out and around. So maybe not. If you're going to have had the link team deployed on hard on this flank, you'd have a basically an imperative to get like a helot standing up here or something, or here actually. This would be a good place. So you'd had to have like deployed a helot on where's 12 inches? Yeah, almost on this rooftop. I'm not even sure if that would be legal to come forward off the rooftop down this ladder and then across into this position. So maybe I'm sort of stretching too much with this. Maybe I'm sort of thinking far too much about what an ideal world would look like rather than what was actually possible from deployment. But yeah, I can't help but feel that really setting up to dominate with that Kamau link might have been might have in retrospect been the play, and that this deployment, this incredibly good defensive deployment, kind of comes from a place of habit where Varuna is used to going second if they deploy second. We got some action over here. Ooh, okay, so Fade is revealing herself. I like this, actually. I quite like this play because all she's going to be engaging is this Fugazi, which can't kill her. So, hey, she's got surprise, whatever, it's all good. She's just crawled out and back. She's landed hits, even. She's rolled a hit on a 4. Crit on an 8, +3, -6. This was sort of, in a sense, a free shot because nothing's going to engage on her up here, or at least now that there are no Crocmen having revealed, nothing will engage on her. Yeah, okay, interesting. So just free Fugazi kill. Nice. It couldn't kill her, why not take the gunfight? I tell a lie, not free Fugazi for kill. Ben made all of his saves, but still, free attack. So yeah, very nice. And again, I think Ben has forgotten to take hacking arrows. It's kind of dubious whether or not this Fade was in zone of control of this Fugazi, but you should have at least declared them when it broke stealth. You should have checked to see, because if she's targeted, she's easier to discover. Targeted persists through marker states and gives you a bonus to discover rolls. So, yeah. Unless I am right, yeah, there are 2 Fusilier hackers back here. They could have at least declared, cost them nothing to do so, and they would have measured to see if it was in range. I suspect it's probably out, but if it's out, it's only barely out. The top-down view makes them look pretty close, but oh well. So Ben, if you watch this, please remember your hacking arrows. Hasn't affected the game yet, but you had them against Selekia through the Peacemaker, and you might have had them against this Fugazi through the against this Fade through the Fugazi. So Projan's just closing out his turn here, re-impersonating with the Fade, moving the Bounty Hunter forward, stuff like that. Now the fact that this Fade was able to re-impersonate without anything coming after her tells me that the second Crocman is not on this rooftop, and I kind of wish there was. I really, because like, if it had just deployed like here, and then when she re-impersonates, you just shoot the damn thing for free. But it is what it is. So I do wonder, actually really wonder where Ben's put his second Crocman. Crocman kind of not ideal to play against Haqqislam. There's just so many shotguns that can trade into them. But, you know, fair enough. Um, yeah, so just looks like Persian's just closing out his turn with some useful play. That means the Stalami has been left up here on this rooftop, but it is on the ladder, so it's blocking this Crocman from coming down and doing nasty things. And it's over to Ben. There's not much I can say about the composition of this Haqq list. It's Armand is very much a Persian flourish, but really this is a very good Haqq list. I almost wish Ben's got half an SWC spare. I almost wish that that bulleteer was a guided missile remote rather than a Spitfire. There's so much hacking in this list. You could genuinely make this could be a Varuna guided missile list where you could like attack asymmetrically and like get your hacking. I mean, it's just Whip 13 Crocman making the attack rolls, but that's fine. And then you force like there's got to be guided missile synergy in Varuna, right? Where Varuna defense is really solid, and so you force your opponent. You just attack them through repeaters, drop missiles on them. Very inefficient. It's ostensive like trying to score kills in the first instance with a guided missile strike is not it's not order efficient. It's very order inefficient. But you could do it in the ground on basically on the grounds that doing so does not expose you to risk, and then you can force your opponent because they know, all right, you'll just keep missiling them and trying to do objectives. So they have to attack you, which means they have to attack into a Varuna defense. It's not this list. This list has a Bulleteer, which is, Bulleteer is fine, but there was just enough SWC that it could have been a Clipper and then some spare points to do something else. Well, we shall see. So, pausing up, and Ben will begin his second turn shortly. So I think while Ben is thinking about his turn, in his shoes, I would, yeah, I don't think my position has changed. I think this is the time to decamp this link team and move up to this corner. Doing so will allow him to fight Armand, and that's a good face-to-face roll. It's a very good face-to-face roll for the Kamau. And then to fight the Dalami. And then I think he has to get forward a little bit to engage the chicken bot, but still killing Armand and this Dalami camouflage marker. You'd probably need to do a climb first just to get everything down. So that would be one order, and then an order of movement. So you'd be down to 5 orders by the time you start engaging Lemuel. But that's actually something that you could do. And it's a very expensive model, and as he continues to move around, basically there are only good gunfights here now. Like as he moves this team up here, these lines, particularly if Armand goes down, it starts being just the Asawira that is able to move up and aggress. He'd even potentially be able to fight the Sec ban if he starts coming up here. So the first thing that's happening is a Crocman is revealing itself, and we can see it's down here. This is an interesting position. It's sort of like kind of just, yeah, pretty safe. Moving around. Okay, so it's coming around the right. Ignore, it's trying to avoid the Dalami shotgun. Yeah. And there's a chance here to engage the Fanus, which I think is probably a face-to-face roll you're pretty happy taking. Next visor on the, yeah, so the Crocman will have to move a bit forward to get that face-to-face roll, but, an X-visor, X-visor combi rifle really is not, particularly with surprise and everything. He'd be looking for sixes, but the Fanus will be looking for, like, oh, geez, ones or something, maybe fours. Okay, so the first thing that will happen is the Crocman will have a chance to see the Dalami. So see this Gazi Matawa. That's definitely a kill you'd like to take. Um, so let's see what goes on. So it looks like the Crocman will just come up to this corner and take a surprise attack. But we'll see. So it looks like the players have agreed that for the Gazi Matawa to see the Crocman needs to come to around here, which it'll see one of them first. I'm not sure which of the two, Fanus and Ghazi, it'll see first. That'll be up to the players to decide. Yeah. So it turns out that it's been too difficult to decide which sees first, and that's kind of reasonable. Like the Ghazi can see to this point here, and the Fanus can see a model moving up forward. So it looks like what's happening is the Crockman's just going to move up and fight both of them in one order. Not sure if he's splitting burst. In his shoes, I'd probably go like 2 dice into the Ghazi, 1 dice into the Fanus, just to make it face to face with everyone and impose that surprise. But we will see. And this is a Crockman forward observer. So it's got, yeah, shock mines, combi rifle, X-visor, deployable repeater, coming in at a tasty 30-something points. 31 points for the forward observer profile. So let's see how Persian reacts. We've got smoke from the Ghazi, giving him his best sort of face-to-face roll. Although he actually has an option of just throwing smoke onto the Mukhtar, but I don't think he'll do that. So we've got a smoke grenade coming down to block sort of as much line of fire as possible. And actually, so this is the relevant thing. He's trying to throw the smoke a long way in this direction because he spots the same problem. If the smoke drops here, then a Kamau sniper on this corner can kill Lemuet through smoke, which is just the worst possible outcome. So he's throwing a really long smoke grenade. And it looks like all of the shots have gone into the Matalia, but only a 1 and a 2 roll hits. The Crockman needed 12s. So yeah, dogged Matalia. Is there an unopposed flash pulse? Another order from the Crockman, just idling. And we have a flash, and I wonder what the Ghazi does here, because you could just fire a shotgun. You'd be on 2s, but you know, a crit is a crit. Actually, the players have determined that it's inside 16 inches from the Matalia to the Crockman, so he'd be on 5s. Yeah, I mean, go for it, right? Just roll the 5. spend a 9-point model to crit out a 31-point model. Let's see how it rolls. All right, everyone whiffs. Fanus whiffs. And the Crockman's looking for a 6 to hit the Fanus. I hate these dice. Everyone misses. An inconclusive face-to-face roll, ergo a good outcome for Huck, since it's not their turn. Now, something that's interesting, and I'm not sure what Ben is doing here, is basically what the end plan for this Crockman is. Because like it can fight the Fanus, and then kind of what? Like it can't move too far forward, or Lemuet will see it. But it could like crawl up and around here. He potentially wants to get a repeater down next to the Asawira, so that he can try and oblivion it, but that doesn't seem right either. So I feel like the play at this juncture is actually to pull the Crockman back, like parting shots, pull back. He probably wants to kill this Dalami. Probably wants to get the Crockman far enough forward to shoot this Dalami in the back. But the Crockman has been stunned, or is about to be stunned. He's been crit by a flash pulse. Let's see, does he pass all of his rolls? No, he does not. Okay. Compulsory guts failure. Backs away. But because he's basically in enfilade by 2 different models, he can't really go anywhere. So the Crockman's just backing away. It's actually a really bad place for the Crockman, although he's going to be okay based on the dice rolls, where his position, he's stunned and he's in line of fire of this shotgun. So this pullback required him to basically try to dodge on a 9 against a shotgun on a 5, which is never a roll that sounds good to take in your active turn. But the Crocman's pulled back, guts prone, he's here. At this juncture, if I was Ben, I would just bloody leave him, but we'll see what Ben does. Okay, Ben is spending more orders to exfiltrate the Crocman. So this is like, this is not, at this juncture, we're sort of conclusively not a good turn. This group began with 7 orders, plus 1 from the Crocman, and it has spent all of it killing 1 Ghazi Matalia. Ben's last turn is to Ben's last turn is going to have to really, really, really push forward and make movements. And I think he set himself up badly with this attack. Now, he wanted to, yeah, sure, kill a Ghazi, maybe kill this Fanus. I can only speculate as to, apart from killing this Dalami by shooting in the back, what the Crocman's end game was to actually, what kind of attack it was. Maybe it was to come all the way up here, drop a repeater to kill the Asawira. But yeah, I think he's done himself a miss just trying to attack with this Crocman. And really, this turn should have been all about this link team jumping down off of this rooftop, getting everyone forward, and then taking a sniper fight with the most expensive piece in the enemy army. Or nearly the most expensive piece. Sorry, just for clarity, Armand is 39 points. It's less actually no, so most expensive. Yeah, Asawira is 39 as well. So Armand Lemuel is the tie for most expensive model in the army. Aggressive action. Now he's got 2 wounds, but a Kamau is an amazing piece for killing him. This would have been 3 dice 16s to 1 dice 13. Now, yeah, you can always get crit. Things can always go terribly wrong. But you're playing Pano, right? Like it is a price of playing Panoceania that sometimes your opponent wins a face-to-face roll and you lose the game. That is why Pan-Oceania is a faction that I hate playing. They have a unique and special way of losing games, which is that they fail a face-to-face roll and that's it. You're fucking cooked because Pano has no plan B. The price you pay for having the best gunfighting in the game is that when that gunfighting does not succeed, you're up shit creek without a paddle. But what that means is that you have to just aggressive gunfights. You have to take your face-to-face rolls and establish firepower dominance. Because if this Kamau kills Armand Labua and the Ghazi Matawiya is down, and then it kills this this Dalami, what is there? This line has the potential to lock down everything. The Mukhtar can't stand up without getting shot. Probably it might be within 24, but it also might not. And it's like the Red Fury Mukta. Even then, that's dice 13 versus dice 16s, right? It's a Kamau. This Asawira can't fucking go anywhere. It could maybe crawl prone, and like spend its entire turn crawling up and around to here, maybe. This would have been such a good position, and there are so few pieces that Persian has to attack it that just a sniper here would have been amazing. Still, it hasn't been a thing that's happened. It is what it is. And so Ben will just have to, again, we've got the link team sitting here again. Just to play it out, just to like figure out what the orders would have been. Ben had 7 orders. 1 to decamp the current position, 1 to move, 5 to engage Lemuet, potentially the Fanus, and the Dalami, and then set up in a position. Yeah, it was doable. And it was far, far more efficient than this Crocman. Another point actually that is worth asking about, and again, I'm sort of like I'm nitpicking Ben's deployment here, and Ben's sort of like engagement because I feel like I can talk to that a little bit more. I feel like Persian's play has basically been like, yep, that's more or less what I would do. I've never played Armand, but otherwise it's pretty familiar stuff. There's an interesting question to be asked, and I don't know what the right answer is about whether or not the Crocmen should have deployed as markers rather than hidden. Because one of the things that cost Ben an effective first turn was not having enough orders. If the Crocmen had deployed as markers, they're in the same group as the core link, then potentially on the first turn, that play with the link team could have been made. Now it was probably risky because Zulekia poses a big threat still, and all of the Dalami. Like you've got to just pay the troll toll against Haqqislam and kill the Dalami, which Ben actually has not done yet, but basically is in a position to. So anyway, Ben's turn ends. Just as a quick recap, the link team is up and standing. I mean, the Kamau is pretty unassailable, frankly. which is fair enough, although its lines of fire are not amazing. The Mukhtar potentially could engage it on about as favorable terms as it will get by moving up to this corner and fighting it within 16. That's actually a good face-to-face roll if the Mukhtar gets to here. But Ben is basically, at this stage, so the Crocmen are both revealed. Persian has seen 15 different troops. The Helot is not. Ben's defense is intact because Persian just has continued to attack it with ablative pieces, expendable pieces. So we've got basically there's a tight like cordon in this bottom right corner of the table that Varuna is occupying. And Varuna's models are largely intact, but their positioning is not set up. If the game ended now, Persian would win because, well, or he'd be pretty close to winning because of all of these points, just camouflage points sitting here. So Persian is beginning his second turn. He's down one Dalami, one Ghazi Matawiya, and Zulakia, but his regulars are all intact. It's just been irregular pieces that have attacked. And I think this has been this kind of Varuna list. Like if a cutter is on the board, then you need to have something that can fight the cutter. Hacking at something, you need to spend regular orders need to be spent to engage a cutter, basically, because it has to be your hackers or something else. You can't really just engage a cutter with a Dalami or you actually can engage a cutter with Zulekia. She will pistol it to death in close combat, but that's separate piece. We have a position where the core of Persian's force is intact. He's literally down 26 points, which is excellent and makes me want to play Haqqislam. I miss Haqqislam now. But we'll see what he does heading into his second turn. Mukhtar's moving forward. It's actually a cautious move because there is a line from the Helot down to this car. It would have been an interesting choice. He could just have moved and been like, come at me. Like, reveal Mukhtar, reveal Helot, I dare you. Without knowing what this Helot is, and given this Mukhtar Red Fury is incredibly important to this game plan, I kind of don't begrudge him this movement. Now, this is interesting, the position that he's taking here, because obviously the Kamau sniper, who we can see in the distance there, has this incredibly long line up the table. And there's only going to be so far forward this Mukhtar can go before the Kamau draws line of fire. Now, the speed 6 on the Mukhtar does mean that it can position itself to make a cautious move. But, yeah, it's probably okay. It doesn't have stealth. It can't move into line of, like, it has to avoid zone of control of this, yeah, so it's making it cautious. Okay. And it's stayed out of zone of control, it's moved, cool. Just really, really nice use. This is good use of cautious movements, actually. 6-inch move on the Mukhtar is also what makes this hacker profile so nice. Basically, Mukhtar suffer very little for giving up their second short move skill. So you can make really good cautious moves with the Red Fury or the hacker. And the hacker also is sort of distinguished by the fact that it can move 6 and hack and just really be efficient. All right, so the Mukhtar's moving forward, and we can see now that the Mukhtar has its sight set on this Crocman. It's going to come up to this corner and take a gunfight. And this is, yeah, so I sort of think we're going to see, it's spent orders getting here. The worst thing that could happen now is if it gets like shot to death. Like if a Crocman crits it, that's probably one of the few very bad outcomes here. But this is a good face-to-face roll. He's got the, we can see here he's got the Crocman totally out of line of fire. There's nice cover. Basically, the Mukhtar is moving up to engage pieces that it is good at engaging. It'll be able to fight the Bulleteer in a couple of orders if it comes out to like this area, and it's staying away from the Kamau. It's keeping the Kamau face-to-face roll until the very end, if it is indeed going to engage the Kamau at all. So I like this a lot, actually. This is a good face-to-face roll. And there's a general, while they're resolving this, I just want to talk a little bit about the Mukhtar in Haqqislam generally, because the Mukhtar is one of those pieces where at the beginning of N3, people were really, N4 rather, there was a lot of like kind of commentary that was a little bit down on it. And specifically what I mean is that with the changes to crits, and the changes to other elements cost, like it didn't really decrease in cost, whereas plenty of other models, like, you know, it's only marginally less expensive than an Asawira with AP Spitfire, right? If we actually look at the Mukhtar, it's clocking in at a tasty 36 compared to 39 for an Asawira. Like, wow, okay, how can you justify the Mukhtar under those circumstances? Well, the thing that the Mukhtar does that I think people have come to realize is that it rounds out Haqqislam firepower. Haqqislam don't have the all-in-one gun piece, and that is well and good because Haqqislam have so much that is amazing, that is really, really good. That you wouldn't want Haqqislam to have a piece that's a like Marut or an Avatar or some business. Um, just pausing briefly while this Mukhtar kills a Crocman. Yeah, that is an extremely dead Crocman. Just for visibility there, what Ben chose to do is he chose not to reveal and hope that the Mukhtar would fail its Discover roll. Now, it needed a 14, but the Crocman was never going to win that face-to-face roll, so kind of fair enough, I guess. I almost would have taken a shot and Flash Pulse just in hopes of stopping the Rampage, because the Mukhtar did need a 14, but it is what it is. Anyway, Haqqislam don't have the all-in-one gun. The Mukhtar is amazing in terms of it's got mimetism and an MSV. Mods are always on its side. Ballistic skill is good. Burst is good. But a Red Fury is damage 13. It's fucking pants for anything except engaging light targets. Um, on the other hand, there are some great guns in Haqqislam that don't stack mods, but do have it's just an AP Spitfire, and especially with the Azrael now. With the release of the Azrael, the Haqqislam have a weapon that has no visor and stacks no mods and is mediocre ballistic skill. But if the Azrael hits you, it will fucking dumpster you because it's damage 16 armor piercing continuous AP, um, which is excellent, right? Like that's really good. Um, but it can't fight. You can fight a tag with an Asawira, but you can't fight the things a Mukhtar would fight, and so with an Azrael. And then we can see in Persian's list, he's got an Asawira. The Asawira is his lieutenant, but he potentially has chain of command on one of those camouflage markers. The Asawira is BS14 Burst 4 AP, pretty damn solid at fighting non-mod face-to-face roles. And so we can see that there's a gun in this Haqqislam list. There's no gun that's good for everything. There's no core linked Kamau, but there is a gun for most targets. In fact, the closest thing to a target that this list can't engage with its weapons is something like an ODD heavy infantry or an ODD tag. Sorry, mimetism -6. So this list does not want to gunfight an avatar. Shockingly, very few lists want to gunfight avatars, but this list does have pieces that can engage that. There's a there's the Mutt, there's the Zolakia, there's etc. There are hackers, although they're not hugely visible. So this is just, and this face-to-face rolling, this attack that the Mukhtar has done, so it's killed this Crocman, it's killed this Bulleteer Spitfire. It had to break cover to move across the line there, but the Bulleteer was shooting back on 12s, it was shooting on 13s, and it's got no wounding cap, right? Fantastic roll. Now at this point, the Mukhtar is pulling back. We can sort of see Persian does not have a ton of orders left in that group. But this is another example of just a, like, this is the kind of attack that he has set himself up to be able to launch, thanks to the fact that he's going second. He doesn't have any pressure on him to do anything except score just like reasonable, safe kills and pull back to safety. Now, the last thing actually I would note about how this turn is played out is that this cautious move from the Mukhtar, where it stood up here, moved back to here, and around to here, 6 inches is only so far, but there's a good chance for all of my bullshit about having the Kamau positioned here, it's possible that the Mukhtar could have escaped by doing that same cautious move, by starting prone, out of line of fire, vaulting up and over these cars and around this way with a 6-inch move. It's pretty close, particularly if the Kamau's angle was positioned aggressively, but that's actually a fair point. Maybe the Mukhtar could have been able to get away. I don't know if it actually would massively change the game, because like it's not going to come and fight the Kamau, it's just going to have all of the same gunfights. But it's possible that Persian could still have had this turn. He would not have been fully locked down. Dalami is moving up and over this. Okay, so back to the action. Dalami is moving to fight this Crocman. Now, it looks like I think Ben is saying that there's no line of fire there, but it looked to me like that Kamau had a line of fire. But we'll see. Yeah, okay, so Ben's agreed. Basically, Ben has said the command does not have line of fire. It kind of looked like it did, particularly since something I think that might have been missed is the fact that the Dalami had to come all the way up to here onto top of this ladder before it could step down, and like it almost has line of fire to where it is now. So I think Ben should probably have said I have that shot. But no, fair enough. They checked it, and if the players are happy, then the players are happy. So that's the conclusion of Persian's turn. Ben is down a couple of models. He's down a Bulletier and down a Crocman. Not a lot as far as orders go. He's going to have an intact order pool going into Group 3, but his offensive options are now, it's just the Link and the Zulu Cobras. And something that you can see as well here is that Persian, like this is a Zulu Cobra, this is a Zulu Cobra. Persian has never pushed into either of them. They could have jammers, they could have hacking devices. Um, Both of them potentially are jammer threats. And so because of that, he has just never chosen to move up and risk the jammer. He's just left them there. Because Zulu Cobras are, I mean, they're not cheap, but he's taken the kills that he can get. And these are not in positions where they can really, really aggressively attack. I would actually be, with the exception of this Kamau, please, please, please go and kill Armand Lemuet. Um, I would not expect a tremendous amount of damage to come out of Ben's turn. We will see what it is he is able to accomplish. The first face-to-face roll we have is actually a Kamau standing and moving, and it's moving to get line of fire to this Dalami. Probably going to take a Panzerfaust back, and this is this is don't crit, don't roll an 11, Dalami. Rolls a 20. So 3 sniper shots back, looking for 16s. And that's going to be 6 tasty saves for Dalami, which we have actually seen survive before on the channel, but we'll see how he goes. No, he is all the way dead. I'm not sure how loud the players are through the audio, but if you didn't hear that, Persian, who has some of the best dry humor I've ever heard, somehow it did not survive. But you know a game is not going ideally when you know a game is not going ideally when in your third turn you are spending orders to kill Dalami. So Ben's been doing quite a lot of math, basically. The video's been paused for a little while, recording rather, and just trying to see how he can position to outpoint things in the zones. Because one of the few saving graces he has here, and I'm not sure it will do him enough, but a lot of Persian's army is in these two models, which are almost on the back table edge. 39 points apiece, and if they can be pinned in, um, then Persian's ability to contest his um, contest like and move forward and take zones is a little diminished. Now I don't think it's going to be enough, and the reason why is that this Mukhtar is forward, this Dalami is alive, this Mukhtar is forward, and there is about under these camouflage markers. We have to do some math really quickly. These may never be revealed, so just for those of you who have watched this far, we've got somewhere under these, you have a 28-point Farzan chain of command, a 20, and Hawa Hacker is the other one. 22-point Hawa Forward Observer, so that's 50, and then the Fidei is the Mine Fidei profile. So there's 77 points under these markers. Then there's a Dalami for 6 points. And then there's the Mukhtar that's already in the zone, and the Mukhtar Hacker comes in at 28, I believe. No, 31, sorry. And then this Mukhtar is probably most likely to die. It is hanging out prone back here, but if a sniper gets into Enfilade, it'll take the Mukhtar out the same way the Mukhtar took out the Crocman. Um, so I cannot help but feel, and again, like we're looking backwards in time here, but if I don't think how Persian played his turn would have been markedly different if the Fidei team had moved up to here, although it may have because it might have meant that the Crocman never moved forward. But if this Kamau team had moved forward and they were already sitting here, Ben would have like 3 more orders at minimum not being needed to spend decamping this turn that can be then funneled through this limited order pool that he has left. But he hasn't, is what it is. And it's very easy for me to be like, oh yes, this plan of action that I am suggesting could not possibly have failed. There is no terrible thing that might have gone wrong. Um, and you just know that if I'd been commentating, Ben had done that, and Arm had just rolled a crit, and three saves had killed the Kamau, then I'd be sitting here being like, this was the wrong thing to do, was to expose yourself to that risk. Fap. So that's my luxury as a commentator. But I think in terms of plays that he could have made, the overwhelming one was to decamp, either have initially positioned this Kamau team more aggressively, with the intention of really locking out any attack run by Zulekia or the Mutt, or um, moved it to be positioned aggressively on the first or second turns. Any of those plays would have produced a game state that I think would have been safer now than the one that Ben is actually having to do, which is spend a lot of orders decamping. And he's making a run actually for the ladder, it looks like. I think it's better to just... This building is short enough that a move 4 model should just be able to jump. So I think this backtracking is going to cost him more orders than it saves, but he can move forward and up and around. So we'll see what happens with this link, and basically we'll see. What will be interesting to see is how many points Ben is playing for. Okay, so actually jumping ahead because there were no face-to-face rolls this turn, Ben has just spent his turn moving. So the Kamau Link team has moved up. It's decamped, and it's moved all the way up to, well, here. These models probably still in the deployment zone, but the Fusilier, Combi, Hacker, and Kamau might be out. This model has revealed itself to be the Hacker, so the Lieutenant. It's a Zulu Cobra Jammer. I think it's been his Lieutenant order jumping to get down, and then it's come around to here. This camouflage marker is still where it is. This Fugazi is still where it is. This Crocman is still where they are. So basically, really nothing but movement on Ben's turn. Even this camouflage marker that is a healer did not move. And he sort of flipped the turn. So what this says to me, actually, is that Ben is banking on... Actually, this is playing for a minor. Ben has scored a classified. Ben is looking to hold his far zone and leave Perzan just with his far zone and the middle zone. Because Ben has to know, right, that what's under these camouflage markers is more expensive than this Crocman Hacker. So if the game ended right now, Perzan would win, and let's have a look and see how much he would win by. So, right now Ben probably has, right now Ben has dominate the nearest sector for 2 points, and a classified, which puts him on 3. Meanwhile, Persian has dominate the nearest sector for 2, dominate the central sector for 3, and has not done a classified. So right now, as the game is probably a 5-3 win to Persian, which is just enough objective points to keep Ben with 1 tournament point. But Persian also has an entire turn, and it presumably wants to, like, it's an interesting thing in terms of ITS incentives, where Persian does not get any benefit from having Ben score fewer points, but it's a tiebreaker, right? He wants tournament points as the tiebreaker, and right now he's on maximum. He's on a 5 objective point win, which is both a win and the offensive bonus, which puts him at, I think, 4 TPs for the 4 TPs for the mission. But he wants not just 4 TPs, he wants, if he can, 10 objective points as well, because the objective points will tiebreak with all the other players who scored 4. So, I mean, he's got a pretty easy line of advance if he wants it. And he's got enough orders, I think, to push it. The casualties he has taken is, right now, he's only down Zolekia, Amatawiya, and 2 Dalami. Inexplicably, this Dalami is still alive. So he has all of the resources he might need. And it's not even going to be too challenging, I don't think, for him to push forward. It's just a question of how much he wants to push forward with. He needs to outweigh this Crocman in the central zone, and then it might be too much to try and outweigh Zulu Cobra, another Zulu Cobra, and most of a core link. Although I'm not totally convinced that these models back here have left the deployment zone. So Persian's probably looking at needing to put 60, 90, at least maybe 120 points in Ben's zone. to really be sure that he's got it, because there's 2 Zulu Cobras, which are worth about 30 points apiece. And he knows there's Zulu Cobras, right? So they sort of kind of have to be around that point zone. The Kamau is probably made it into the far zone, and it's worth 32. And then you've got these 2 Fusiliers, 1 Combi, 1 Hacker. So you've got like 30, 30, 30, 30, basically. Not quite that much. It's probably 120 points would comfortably outpoint what's in this zone, although it wouldn't give you any fat for this paramedic and this hacker, although I think they might still be inside Ben's deployment. With all of these elements up here, he's got about 70 points, and they could just run up and camp on this building edge, and they'll be in that zone. And then with both Muqtars, he'd probably have enough. I'm not going to do the napkin math on that, but it looks like it'll be the Muqtars making the run. That leaves him needing to outpoint this Crocman in the central zone, which he can do with his Asawira. The Crocman is worth about 34 points. Let's look that up. That's the Crocman hacker. Yeah, 34 points, which the Asawira is worth more than. So it looks like in this instance, Persian's play is get the Asawira into the middle zone to outpoint this Crocman. Get everything else. Get this whole bomb task force of 2 camouflage markers, a Fidei, and 2 Muqtars, which should collectively be enough to outweigh what Ben has into this far zone. And to get to there, he needs to move the camouflage markers up onto the lip of this building, and the Muqtars and possibly Dalami up past it. And that should pretty much... Oh, there's a Fanus that move forward as well. But that should pretty much do it. Let's see what it is that he manages. I suspect we won't see a lot of combat this turn, but we'll pause up to see if there is any, and otherwise we'll jump to the conclusion of Persian's turn to see where he moves. Okay, so there are some orders left to be spent, but this is where we've ended up. The Asawira has indeed moved forward to contest the middle zone against this Crocman. This team over here has moved forward, so the Fidei is sort of where she is. Both Muqtars have made it to this part of the building. The hacker got carbonated through the Fugazi by the Fusilier hackers, marking the first time in the game that Ben remembered he had hacking AROs, but probably not in time to stop them from reaching the far zone. So the only thing that hasn't happened is we've seen no movement on these camouflage markers. And in terms of Persian's army, they are in the primary group. They could potentially move forward with those orders that he has. And you'd almost want to... He's got no command tokens left, but you'd want to like prone them forward over to the ladder and then run up and over, and they can't die, basically, provided they just... Their last order ends them up there. But, yeah, so... Because we know that they're in the dead middle of the table. So pausing up, well, basically now we can see the grid snapped in. And if we look at Ben's army, yeah, okay. So I was being overcautious. The Kamau and the Fusilier paramedic have not made it out of Ben's deployment zone, which means that Persian has to be able to contest 2 Zulu Cobra Jammers and 2 Fusiliers, which he will do with a Jalami, 2 Muqtar, and a Hassassin Fidei. Oh, there's also a Fugazi drone board here, but that will be more points. This is 60, 65, 75, maybe 90 points, and there is more than 90 points in the models here. It is close, but there's more than 90 points over here. The middle field is easily contested by the 2 camouflage markers and the Asawira. And then, of course, on the very end, there's the only model that I can see in Persian's far zone is 1 bounty hunter, but there is a bounty hunter over here. It moved forward on the first order. And actually, there's a little lesson here in how useful in Frontline it can be to front load your scenario scoring if you can do so in a safe way. This was an order that Persian spent way in the first turn, and if he had needed an order in the last turn, he would not have had to have wasted time with the bounty hunter faffing around and moving it forward. So Persian does not look to have done his classified. I Don't know where HVTs are, um, and HVTs are certainly used in this mission. So I assume Persian would be trying to secure the HVT. Oh yeah, Benz is over here. Um, it doesn't look like Persian. He might just barely have managed to secure the HVT, um, which means that this game will end probably either 9-1 or 10-1 in Persian's favor. So very well played. And this, again, just to recap and put a bow on this, rounding out the recording, this has been a really interesting example of a game where choosing to go second despite losing the lieutenant role was the right play. Varuna are an army that are not massively well adapted to attacking, particularly into attacking into something like Haqqislam, and Persian had the experience with the table, thanks to being able to practice deployment, to set up a deployment that he was comfortable with, and the scenario incentivized it. So all three of those factors together meant that we had kind of one of those rare scenarios where accepting the risk of just choosing second turn is potentially worthwhile, and it's paid off. Over the course of the game, we've seen Persian able to just make very cautious trading attacks, the kind of which Haqqislam excels at, to slowly and incrementally gain advantage. And then also we've seen him able to make a final turn rush where he was able to just make no attacks, just push into zones, use the points, basically the excess points he'd accrued over the course of the game, to push in and score a decisive and crushing victory. This game will be going up on both the RAL and my channel. Whichever you're viewing on, you can see a link to the other in the description. The description will also include a link to the Remote Access League server. RAL Season 4 is currently being played, but Season 5 will kick off at the conclusion of Season 4. And of course, the Human Edge team event is in preparation now. So if you're interested in forming a team for Human Edge, it's a teams of up to 5 players. You can have fewer if you're willing to have some players play more games. You can also have a 6-player if you'd like a reserve. Those will be matched up against other teams over the course of a month, basically in a format very like this. So if you'd like to put together a national team or a local team, or even just a team of friends, it should be a really solid event. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.